Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, where it's all about creating the life you want, the business you want, and making a real difference. Join us in unlocking the code to true success. And now your host, Tony Caliendo, Master Coach with Rethink Coaching.
Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast. I'm Tony Caliendo, Master Coach here at Rethink Coaching. And as always, I just want to take a minute and thank you for investing your time with me. Time truly is our greatest asset, and the fact that you're willing to share your time with me truly does mean a great deal. If you've been listening to the past episodes, you've noticed a theme possibly around success and what that might look like. And I'm debunking the myth of success a little bit in my quest to help people understand what's really important. And today's no different. I really want to talk about the success trap that nobody warns you about. This is something that I've experienced both in my corporate career and as an entrepreneur. And I believe it's just part of how we were taught or what our beliefs that we were given around success means. And I just want to provide some clarity to you on what success could look like and potentially what's going on that might be preventing you from reaching a level of success that you've wanted to reach for a while. So the number one thing I'm going to say is what got you here can quietly become what keeps you stuck. And I know that seems strange, right? If something worked so great that it got you to a level of success, how can it also be the thing that keeps you stuck? And that's really an interesting concept. And it's one that I do want us to explore a little bit today. The thing is, what I'm seeing as I coach successful entrepreneurs and executives and humans is that high performers are rarely failing because they stop working. That's really not the case. I know that the majority of you that are listening are not lazy, because if you were, you wouldn't be investing your time in listening to a podcast. What I find is that people who are struggling the most to get to their next level are typically people who are also driven, people who have a focus on success. And what's interesting about that, and I appreciate it because I've been there myself, is that you're still striving to get to that next level and you're carrying around some baggage that's keeping you from really, really getting there. You might be working as hard, if not harder, than you did a few years ago. And something might feel heavier or slower or more frustrating about the journey that you're currently on. Whether you're maintaining your success, if you've felt a little slippage in your success, or if you're just barely moving the needle, there can be this different feeling that you have than what you have felt before. And it might really feel confusing to you because effort usually or used to equal more results. If I just do more, if I work harder, if I just do this. And we might be realizing that extra effort is not what is moving you forward, and it's not impacting your results in the way that you hoped it would or in the way that it had. So the problem isn't that you've stopped working. The problem is you may still be working the way you used to, and that may no longer be serving you. The number two thing to think about is there's this invisible shift that happens as you grow, and that's shift. There's an invisible shift that happens as you grow. Strategies that worked early on don't always scale. Early on, you might be saying yes to everything. You might have been taking every single opportunity that came your way. You might be wearing all of the hats in your organization, from salesperson to closer to your assistant to IT to your web development to all of that stuff. You might be wearing all of those hats. And early on, speed did matter. Speed mattered sometimes more than precision in the early stages. And there was also the impact that volume created momentum. I can tell you, when I first stepped into being an entrepreneur and it was in the lane of real estate, I did all of these things. I said yes to every single opportunity that came up because I needed income. Quite frankly, I needed money. And I needed money to maintain the life that I had created as an executive with Marriott, as a leader within Marriott. And I was looking at every single opportunity because I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know what was going to work for me. In fact, I didn't know really what all the options were to explore. So every single opportunity that came up, I took. Back in the day, we had this thing called floor time, where you waited for somebody to walk in. This was before the internet was really as robust as it is now for searching for homes. You also were playing receptionist, answering the phones. I would do every single open house. I went to everything real estate related that I could. I was saying yes to every single opportunity and hoping and praying that something would stick or something would work. And it's not a bad thing in the beginning, yet it's really not a strategy that's going to move you forward and allow it to be sustainable. What you realize as you move forward in your next level of success or this open reality moment is that saying yes creates noise. I've said this before. You say yes to something you're typically saying no to or diluting something else. Too many opportunities can dilute your energy. If you're popping around doing a bunch of stuff in hopes that something sticks and you continue that as a strategy, you might not be spending enough time doing one thing to move you forward to get the result that you're after. That would happen if your energies weren't depleted by doing so many different things. Wearing every hat really does slow the decision making. It's hard to act as an executive when you're acting as an executive assistant. It's hard to act as an executive when you're working on your website. It takes a different level of thinking and concentration. Volume and speed can also become chaos. When you're working quickly, you're more apt to make mistakes. And the further you move down or move up in your career, the more critical things are that you do it correct and do it correct the first time. So the game changed, but maybe your operating system hasn't. I see this happen when I start coaching clients who've been in their position or doing what they're doing for a few years and they stall out. And those are their words. I'm stuck or I've stalled out. And what's fascinating about that is you really reflect back on the systems that they're using and they're outdated. They're not in alignment with maybe their new goals or their new activities or their new approach to success. So we really have to look at those things to make sure that we are moving forward. Early success is built on expansion. Sustained success is built on elimination. And the elimination part is really, really important, that on this journey, we start paying attention to what's the right more and what's the wrong more and start eliminating or subtracting, which goes against really what we've been taught on what it takes to be successful or to grow in your role as a leader or role as an entrepreneur or just role as a human being in life. Number 3 thing is there is a psychological side to this. Your identity will get involved and get a little bruised. Your ego might get a little bruised in this process when we talk about the truth. We get emotionally attached to the behaviors that made us successful. We experience some level of success and that creates an identity for you that you're in the game, that you're somebody who has succeeded or made it to this level. And it's natural that we would get emotionally attached to those behaviors. Your identity gets tied to being maybe the hardest worker, the fastest responder, the one who always shows up. Think about that. If you're in a group text or a group email, I always think it's interesting to see who the first person is to respond. And it's not always the most important to be the first person to respond. It's really important to be the one who responds with critical data or support in helping reply to that email or make it impactful what you're saying. When you let go of those behaviors as, well, I've got to be the hardest worker, I've got to be the quickest, right? People are dependent on me and I got to show up even if I'm sick or even if I wanted to take a vacation. When you start to let go of those behaviors, you also might feel like you're losing a bit of your identity. The brain, we've talked about this before, the brain identifies that change as risk. It's like, what are you doing? You're giving up what you know has worked, even though you're exhausted and you're not moving forward. It's a comfortable behavior. Even sometimes a position change can trigger uncertainty. So if you've been recently promoted or if you've grown your team and added different layers of leverage, this could be causing your identity to get rocked. I know what I will see sometimes is when somebody gets promoted or they grow their business to the point that they need to bring on leverage, they sometimes go through this imposter syndrome moment where they feel like they're an imposter and who are they to need to do this. So the psychological side of things is really, really important because our identity gets involved. And I've shared this with you before, and I love my mom and dad for teaching me this. They taught me really good work ethic. And I've shared before, my dad was a partner in a small chain of drugstores. My mom, a retired nurse, and they both worked in the family business to help it grow. And part of the identity with that was you were very serious when you went to work. It was not fun and games. It was about, doing your job and doing it to the best that you could at all cost. And that might have been saying no to family time, saying no to vacations, saying no to spending money on yourself and reinvesting it in your company when the company was doing fine. That was part of the identity that I brought with me as I moved into my corporate career. And then it resurfaced again as I went into my entrepreneurial phase because it was the model that I was taught. And that was my identity. And going against it felt really, really awkward. I can remember seeing people in my industry that made things look so effortless and were, in my opinion, I'm like, gosh, if they just worked harder, how much more success could they have? And the reality was they had mastered what was important to their business. And they didn't tie their identity to being the hardest worker, to being the fastest responder, to being the one that always showed up. They responded when they needed to. They worked hard when it was necessary. And they showed up as required, not just for the sake of showing up. So there's a couple things, right? Your brain prefers familiar stress over unfamiliar growth. It's going to want you to stay in your lane that it's comfortable with you being in. Familiar equals safety, even if it's inefficient. And that's a big one. So sometimes we don't hold on to old strategies because they still work. We hold on to them because they still feel like us. It's comfortable. Over 90% of what we do is conditioned habitual behavior. It's just what feels comfortable. And it's not always the best conditioned behavior. So in this case, we're holding on to these old habits and behaviors because they feel like our old self and it feels good. Number 4 thing I want you to think about is the actual trap, right? I talked about the success trap. Success creates attachment that becomes ceilings. I want you to think about this. If we hold on to old behaviors, we hold on to old patterns, we may be experiencing where we're hitting this constant ceiling of success, having the same year over and over and over, and not being able to break through a goal ceiling. I've experienced that myself, and there is nothing more absolutely frustrating than that. You set new goals, you set new strategies, you set a new mindset, and off you go. And only to find out at the end of the year that you had the same year you had the previous years. And that's because we created attachments to success, and those actually became the trap that kept us under a certain goal ceiling. Sometimes our attachment comes from our calendar needing to be full. I think about this. Sometimes I think about folks that I coach that share their calendar with me, and it makes my eyes cross because there is just so much stuff on the calendar. There is this overwhelming attachment to be needed. So we're filling every minute of every day with activities because it makes us feel good. We attach to doing instead of thinking. We attach to speed versus intention, and we attach to old definitions of productivity. One thing that I will witness that happens sometimes when we're looking at that trap is, that attachment of being needed. I'm not going to lie, it feels good, right? It feels really good when someone or somebody's need you. And we enjoy that feeling as human beings. And sometimes I've seen this happen where I always say they're playing the Superman role. They let things go sideways so that they can come in and save the day and feel needed. And it's unnecessary stress or chaos that they allow to happen because on an unconscious level, this need of being needed is really strong. And it can create that Superman effect. I'm going to come in and save the day and show how wonderful I am and make everybody feel really good. And we're going to get to move forward finally, when what you're doing actually is you've let it slide backwards and your forward momentum is just getting you back to where you were, not necessarily any further ahead. What starts to happen in these moments, right? So what's starting to happen in these moments when you actually get into the meat of the trap is you find yourself that you're busy, but not moving. That's a frustrating feeling. It's like you're on a treadmill trying to run a 5K. Well, you're never going to get to physically move. You're going to be on that treadmill running and running and running and never actually move forward. You're active, but you're not advancing. Again, that's kind of doing things and hitting that same goal ceiling year after year, month after month, week after week. and you're producing, yet you're not progressing. These are all things that can be symptoms or signs that you're in the trap, that you're in the success trap. Busyness becomes a comfort zone and activity becomes your proof of worth. I know so many folks, myself included, right? If I've had like an easy day, there's still times now, like this weekend, I had some downtime and I reached out to my sales and marketing company and I said, hey, I got some downtime. Can you send me some stuff? And fortunately, they didn't. And I think they realized that we got enough planned. We've got a great timeline going. And I was uncomfortable with not being busy. And I had to coach myself and realize that that's a gift. That was such a gift to be able to spend some time yesterday. We go to this annual gala every year. It's the Cancer Society's gala and fundraiser. It's the Sweetheart Ball. And we go to it every single year. And what this not being busy allowed me to enjoy yesterday was a peaceful day. So I didn't show up to this event tired, that I was able to be fully present when I was there, participate at a really high level, and do what I was supposed to do rather than just checking a box that I went to the function. So that busyness is not always your friend, and it certainly is not always what you want to strive to be doing. You know, people aren't stuck because they don't know what to do. They're stuck because they won't release what used to work. And that's that busyness part that can cause a lot of challenges for you. What you'll learn as a high performer eventually, hopefully, is that the next level requires a different relationship with time and focus. People ask me all the time how, the clients that you coach that are making over 7 figures, multiple 7 figures, what do they do that's so different? And this is really the key to it, is that they have a different relationship with time and focus. They have fewer priorities, not more goals. They have longer focus cycles instead of constantly switching between activity, right? They've identified the right more activities, which allows them to have a more focused time in those activities and hopping from activity to activity. They have thinking time. My executives that I coach all have thinking time built into their schedule. For a lot of younger entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs stuck in that success trap, that's one of the most uncomfortable things to ask them to do because they view it as slowing down when it's actually what high performers do that allows them to continue to move forward. My high performers have more white space on their calendar. They've got time for family. They've got time for themselves. They've got time to enjoy and relax because they're confident that the activities they're doing are the right activities and the only activities that they need to do to be progressing, not just feeling busier. And they are very intentional with their decision making. A lot of things go into that. They're very clear on their values through the lens of work. They're very clear on what their activities are and what the strategies are. And that allows them to have really solid decision making versus maybe I should try it and see what happens, or say no to the wrong thing. When you're focused on too many more, right, and wrong more, your decision making is really, really clouded, and it makes it more difficult to make the right or the best decision. And what they do is they have more repetition of the higher impact activities. They haven't diluted their time or energies by doing a bunch of stuff. They're doing the right things, which brings them actually the best results. So the best leaders don't always look busy. They don't look frantic. They don't look like that person that you envision maybe as what it looks like to be a successful leader. Kind of running around with your hair on fire, always busy, always, futzing around. That's not what it looks like when you reach a level of success. The best operators actually look calm because they know exactly what's working. The best performers protect their attention. They don't allow the wrong things to enter. We've talked about this a little bit about protecting your space and protecting your mind. This is what leaders do at a really high level is they protect their attention. They know exactly what they should be doing when they should be doing it, and they follow it, and they trust it, and they get the best results. So the highest performers I know don't do more things. They do fewer things with greater intention. That's the truth. I want you to take a minute today, whether it's right now and you put the pause button on this, or you do this after this podcast is done. And I want you to think about where you personally have opportunity about what we've talked about. Not guilt, just some self-awareness. asking some important questions. And this is where you might want to pause after each question and really get clear on it and take the moment to give yourself the gift of taking action in a different way. First question I would like for you to ask yourself is, what are you still doing today that only exists because of a past version of you? What are you still doing today that only exists because of a past version of you? Number 2, what used to be necessary that is no longer required? What used to be necessary that is no longer required? Number 3, where are you operating out of habit versus intention? Where are you operating out of habit versus intention? Number 4, what are you afraid would happen if you stopped doing certain things? Number 5, if you remove 20% of your current activity, would your results actually drop? These are really, really powerful questions, team. And these are things that I've asked myself over the years, and my brilliant coaches have also asked me. And I think the one that I like the most out of this is, what are you afraid would happen if you stopped doing certain things? I struggled with that, to give up certain things, because a couple things were going through my head. Nobody else can do it as good as me. I can give this to my, senior person or my junior person, but they're not going to be able to do it as good as me. And I'm afraid that if I stop doing it, it's just not going to get done, and we're going to experience a blip on the radar screen. I had all kinds of stories that allowed me to hold on to things that I really needed to let go of. So what are you afraid would happen if you stop doing certain things? This is where you want to question leverage. Like, what am I doing that I don't need to do? What's an activity that I don't need to do? And if I gave it to somebody else to do, what opportunity could it create for me? That's that 20%. If we remove 20%, would your results drop or go up? I know when I let go of things that I did not need to do yet needed to be done, so leverage through employees or team members, I actually got more time and better results. That was the magic. So ask yourself those questions. Take a moment, hit pause, sit with it, get clear with it. Don't answer quickly. This isn't about guilt or making you feel weird about what you've done. And this is not an identity question. This is an opportunity series of questions for you. I want you to think about this. Growth is often subtraction, not addition. That is so counterintuitive to what we've been taught. Growth is often subtraction, not addition. We have been conditioned to believe that growth means adding and doing more. That's the only way to success, is how many of us were raised in the business world. Real growth really looks like refinement. That's really important to think about. We're constantly refining and changing. It's the courage to retire old strengths. What used to be really powerful may not be. It's choosing precision over volume, and it's trusting that focus creates momentum. That's really what creates momentum. Diluted focus actually dilutes momentum and causes chaos. But when we have really clear focus, that's what can create momentum. So just know that growth isn't always about learning something or doing something different. It's really about letting go of things that are no longer working the way they used to, and or finding leverage and creating the space for you to have great success. So the next version of your success is out there. It's waiting for you. And in order to get to it, you've got to address some of the things that we talked about today. I do believe that you can do whatever you want to do, that your success level can be whatever you want it to be. You just can't carry old behaviors with you that really are not working in your favor any longer. You just do them out of habit. I think that's the one thing that we've all been victim of doing, is I'm doing it because I've always done it. One of my old mentors used to share a story about cooking. I just want you to think about this. Popped in my head, so I'm going to share it. Cooking the holiday ham with her mom. She noticed her mom cut both ends off the ham and put it in the pan. And she asked her mom, she's like, is there a reason why you cut both ends off the ham? I mean, does it make the ham taste different? Does it cook differently? And her mom's like, I don't know. My mom always did it. So they asked the grandmother. And the grandmother said, I don't know. I just always did it because my mom did it. And what they realized was the reason they cut the ends off of the ham was because it didn't fit in the pan. And so that old behavior, that old habit was not serving them, because they had a pan large enough for the ham to fit into. And they no longer had to do that to experience success, right? Making a holiday ham. So I know that is a very simple story for you, but I think it's really powerful. Sometimes we're just doing things out of habit. So if you feel that you are stuck in this success trap, welcome to the club. It happens to the best of us, and I believe it happens to pretty much all of us. But you've got some great ways forward to change it. As always, team, I'm here to help you out any way that I can. Feel free to reach out to me at tony@rethinkcoaching.com, or you can find me on all of the social outlets, and you can always direct message me there. I'm happy to answer any question you might have about this or anything else. All right, I appreciate y'all being here. Go make it a great week. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you must come check out the Mindset Architect Group Coaching Program. It's our monthly program where we explore the power of your mindset, help you identify what you truly want in business and life, and then help you reach those goals. Come check us out at rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. That's rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. We'll see you there.